It's 1925 in Boston. While the world is still coming to terms with the disastrous consequences of World War I, disturbing testimonies about atrocities committed not only on the battlefields but also in the gloomy corridors of the buildings belonging to the First Circle, a mysterious society secret with occult and esoteric interests, begin to emerge. To fight these shady plots, the Ordo Ira Dei organization is formed, a sort of occult inquisition with the specific goal of halting the investigation and illicit experiments relating to the dark dimensions and horrifying creatures that lie beyond the known cosmos. Is this the new work of the Polish studio Plot Twist, previously known as Awesome Industries, already authors of the Drift Zone series, and published by the independent label Rogue Game Incorporated, which has recently landed on Xbox Series X, S, PC, and has been included in Microsoft's popular Game Pass service since day one? Is there anything it reminds you of? Well, possibly because the game's setting is profoundly founded in the literary creation of one of modern history's greatest authors, widely regarded as the father of the whole horror genre and contemporary science fiction, Howard Phillips Lovecraft. The protagonist, whose name serves as the game's title, is a self-proclaimed private investigator who appears to be directly involved in the conflict between the First Circle and the Ordo Ira Dei, and who appears to be harboring a horrific truth: there is a voice in his head, an invisible but ubiquitous companion, a relentless murmur that feeds on the intensity of his emotions, a demonic entity that aids him in his labors thanks to its multidimensional vision and supernatural talents. It is not immediately clear how Benedict's life and this enigmatic presence are linked, but we soon find them involved in a complicated case, perhaps the most difficult of the protagonist's career: the inexplicable murder of a couple inside their imposing mansion, a seemingly incomprehensible crime but with shocking characteristics. Fortunately, Benedict's companion has the ability to make him relive the memories of missing people as well, immersing the detective's conscience in the agonizing coils of the deceased's memory. And it is here that we meet Limbo for the first time, a projection of the unfortunate's nightmares that houses lethal creatures and deadly traps, but also artifacts and memories necessary for the reconstruction of the two victims' lives and the final resolution of this intricate affair. The last case of Benedict Fox features a noticeable dualism between two distinct but mostly nicely mixed souls in the playful formula: the investigative passages inside the home and those more clearly based on Metroidvania canons during the exploration of Limbo. The first is based on a collection of crucial objects that must be investigated and analyzed in order to comprehend their position in the plot's economy, but also on the presence of many puzzles that must be answered using logic or simple mathematical procedures. Once you've completed these activities, which are plentiful in the game, you'll have access to new areas to explore, new characters to interact with, and, of course, new tools to use to progress. The Plot Twist team has done an amazing job in this regard, it must be said. The puzzles are always nicely constructed and never overly hermetic, although understanding how they function requires some effort on the part of the players. To maintain a consistent aesthetic, the creators decided not to add in-depth tutorials to explain the mechanisms in order to maintain the immersive quality. There are doors to open by following the instructions on various journals buried throughout Limbo, chests to open by decrypting the protection codes, and much more. Of course, once you understand the philosophy that underpins these minigames, you may notice a slight underlying repetitiveness, but it is nothing that detracts from the overall enjoyment, partly because the studio was wise enough to balance the investigative and purely action phases well. And it is precisely in this last aspect that the last case of Benedict Fox begins to show its limitations, as a lack of overall refinement weakens the concept and enjoyment of the experience. In essence, all of the trappings of a Metroidvania are present and immediately identifiable. They were, however, created and implemented with a lack of care that would have allowed the game to reach other exponents of the far more famous genre. There is the unavoidable map to unlock area after area, employing unique powers, keys placed across the scenery, and uncovering alternative routes concealed behind seemingly impossible hurdles. Unfortunately, it is easy to see that we are a long way from the peaks of excellence reached by the best chapters of Metroid and Castlevania, the Ori series, or the never-too-lauded Hollow Knight. Here is a review of Hollow Knight. The worlds that can be explored in the last case of Benedict Fox do not give particularly spectacular solutions that might burn this intriguing plunge into human craziness into the player's memories, despite some humorous gimmicks and a strong artistic direction. Furthermore, while navigating the scenarios, you can collect fragments and ink, which are useful for purchasing Benedict's equipment and unlocking new skills related to the symbiotic relationship with the partner. While shards can be obtained by analyzing items scattered throughout the game and are instantly added to the inventory, ink can be obtained by exploring new areas or defeating specific opponents, but it must be fixed at pre-designated anchor points that also serve as teleportation stations. In the event that we are defeated on the battlefield, the unfixed ink will be abandoned at the site of death and must be reclaimed by retracing our steps and eliminating the creature that caused us to die. The fighting system, for its part, is simple but functional. One key is dedicated to bayonet attacks, another to pistol aiming, and yet another to parrying, which can be precisely timed to make the now traditional parry. Then there are different offensive and defensive strategies assured by the partner's intervention, which will have to be unlocked by spending the aforementioned ink, but which we prefer not to reveal in advance so as not to ruin the surprise. After all, nothing really novel. Of course, there are several boss fights that have the role of slightly varying the progression of the adventure but, aside from some outstanding visual gimmicks, do not present moments of extraordinary workmanship that may put even the most experienced players in difficulty. Clearly, more might have been done in this regard. The true Achilles heel of the work is the poor timing of command answers, which all too frequently leaves the player unprotected and at the mercy of the opponents. This latency can often hinder simple actions like jumps and parries from being done successfully. Several times during our test, we found ourselves in the middle of combined attacks by the monsters of Limbo, with no way of defending ourselves, simply because the block button did not respond adequately to the commands. Or even falling into the abyss because the jump input did not register properly. It goes without saying that in a genre like Metroidvania, where precision in execution is a cornerstone, this lack of accuracy is rather crippling, especially in the game's more difficult stages, which need a set number of actions per second. And it's a terrible pity. Unfortunately, from a technical standpoint, the situation is no longer pleasant. We played the last case of Benedict Fox on Xbox Series X and saw significant framerate reductions even in uncrowded environments, not to mention the existence of several unexpected crashes. Different speech for the artistic direction, which, as previously stated, manages to bring to life a fascinating and sinister moving picture. The characters in the story, while lacking a crucial psychological understanding, are all fairly compelling and nicely defined, as are the landscapes, which are pervaded by a gloomy beauty. The English dubbing is likewise excellent, with each line delivered with the appropriate intensity. Applause for the mysterious companion who whispers in the detectives' and our minds, with a very creepy accent and tone of voice.